Hello everyone and welcome back to another edition of Indie Book Review, where today I am reviewing The Portrait by Evelyn Chartres. I still hope I'm saying that right. Alright, so let's get on with the plot. It's really hard to say what this plot is, really. Basically, Victoria's parents die. Victoria Frost's parents die. So she quits her job and decides to go be an author. She was a lawyer, and apparently a very high-priced lawyer, so she has a lot of money in reserve and stuff like that, so she's not hurting financially by any means. And it just kind of, throughout the story, her obsession just kind of grows more and more with everything that she's writing, and every time she thinks of her book character. There's a few little mysteries here and there, like this little key that she finds out in the country, or this person trying to watch in on her, and basically just keep an eye on her until he's able to get into her house. There's a few other little subplots here and there, and it all culminates into this big surprise ending, which actually even I didn't really call. Like, it wasn't until like the very, very end, right before it's revealed, that I'm like, oh, okay, I think I see where this is going. And even then I wasn't 100% sure on that. It was definitely a 50-50 on where it was going. So, but I'll get to the ending eventually. Plot, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. Like, there's not a lot of plot there, but what is there is captivating enough that it keeps you reading. So, it does a very good job with what little it has, and honestly, that is something that definitely needs more praise than what it definitely gets. Characters. There are two major characters throughout this story, Victoria and her character Evelyn. Victoria is this mild, meek, shut-in of a person. Like, she was under her parents' thumb her entire life until they died, and then all of a sudden she's got to try and figure things out for herself, and she goes and does her own thing for a little while, and she goes more and more into who she is going to be. And it's actually really interesting and really fascinating to see her evolution as it goes on. And then you got Evelyn, who's this prostitute from the 1800s. Actually, no, before that. I think Victorian era. Maybe 1800s? Anyway. Who gets brought in by this artist, and she goes on to this whole art thing, and yeah, like, Evelyn is a really interesting character, and she tends to show a little bit more psychopathic tendencies throughout the book, and it's really fascinating, and it definitely makes sense as to who she is right near the end. And honestly, I really have no problem with what Evelyn is and who she is, and for characters, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. Like, even the small side characters, I really have nothing to say against them. Like, they're well written. They don't feel tacked on by any means. They feel like they have a purpose, either in Victoria's evolution or as a part of Evelyn's evolution. Writing. So, I've been reading a few of the reviews for this book, and a lot of them have mentioned the writing in this book. And for the most part, I can't really say as I disagree. This book does not have a lot of dialogue. It is mostly from Victoria's either her written manuscript or from her perspective as, she goes throughout her day. And she's typically by herself. She's alone for the most part, so there really isn't much to say. And she's not the sort of person who really talks to herself very often. So there's not much in the way of dialogue. And on one hand, holy crap, it works for this book. It really does. It really, really works. And you get really into Victoria's head. You know who she is. You know what's going on. But on the other hand, it does make it a bit of a slog to get through, because at some points you're just like, oh god, get on with it, or do something interesting just for this chapter. Do something interesting. And it's not like nothing is uninteresting. It's just there are some things that are more interesting than others throughout the book, which makes the parts that are important but mildly uninteresting seem uninteresting. Whereas the stuff that it really is interesting really stands out. So I'm gonna give writing a 3 out of 5. Like, it's not the best, but but there are definitely way more pros to this writing style than there are cons. And yeah, a 3 out of 5. But with all that comes imagination and research, and as per the last 2 books that I read of Evelyn's, I really have nothing bad to say about the imagination research. There's so much research that goes into this. There is so much imagination that goes into this. I can't, in good conscience, give it less than a 5 out of 5. Like, it's something that you have to really read to understand, especially with a book like this. You really do need to read this to understand it. And to see why I'm giving imagination research a 5 out of 5. Because this isn't something that, 1 or 2 major things really stand out. It is a novel-wide sort of thing. She knew what she was talking about the whole time, and that is something that is very much appreciated, especially for me as a reader. So, yeah, imagination research, 5 out of 5. Hands down. And now we get to the ending. And if you don't want spoilers, go to this time. So, the person breaks into Victoria's place. She goes into a bit of a funk because she believes the person that she was interested in died, and, all this stuff goes on. Then she finds this box in her apartment, and she gets it open with that little key that she finds. It takes her to this warehouse where she finds all this amazing artwork, and she goes through all these halls and stuff like that, and then eventually meets Evelyn and her artist courtesan as well. But Evelyn is the main thing. She meets Evelyn in the flesh. Like, this isn't some multiple personality thing. This isn't some Evelyn was inside me this whole time. She's a psychic projection of what I'm feeling, so on and so forth. No, Evelyn's straight up a vampire. And throughout this entire book, there has not been a single mention of vampires or the supernatural. And I love that. I genuinely loved that. Because there's no way to tell what was going to happen. And even just before you get to that point, you're still not entirely sure, like, that's what's going to happen. And that's how it should be with something like a supernatural fiction. Yeah, vampires are this legend, but, you don't really think about it because they don't exist. There's no hint towards it. There's no anything. And in a lot of books, that can be a very, very dangerous thing to do. Like, not even a single hint, not even a single mention of the supernatural or the undead or anything like that. Just dropping it right on your lap. That can be a very dangerous thing. But in a book like this, it works. Because you just got that build-up. And it could go, it could have gone any which way. And yeah, Evelyn and her courtesan Mark turn out to be vampires, and they turn Victoria into a vampire. And Victoria, as a vampire, gains that self-confidence that she's always needed, and just continues on with who she is. And there is a little bit of a last chapter where one of her friends is trying to figure out where she went, and eventually is also killed by a vampire. Maybe turned. It's left ambiguous. But yeah. So yeah, with an ending that is superbly put together, that is not only dangerous for other books to do, but could only have really been done right in a book like this. I'm giving the ending a 5 out of 5. Like, there's no other way that I can put this. Like, it is just a superbly written ending. Probably one of the best that I've seen from her in like in the last 2 books. And I didn't mind the ending for The Grand, and I actually really enjoyed the ending for the Van Helsing Paradox. This is probably the best ending I've read from her so far, and yeah, hats off. Like, I really, really enjoyed that. Ending is a straight up 5 out of 5. So all in all, I'm going to give this book an 8.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed this book. I found it hard to put it down, and I was looking forward to my next lunch break so I could read it again. So if you haven't picked this book up yet, I recommend it. I really liked it. And in some ways, I actually almost liked it more than The Grand. Maybe not quite as much as Van Helsing Paradox. Um, it's really close between the three of them. Like, Evelyn's just a great author. You really should read just read all of her books. Like, they're really good. And I'm looking forward to reading the Van Helsing Resurgence when I eventually get to it. There's a bit of a lineup, but yeah, check it out. I really enjoyed it. And that's about all I got for you guys today. So, oh yeah, I am still accepting new submissions in for book reviews. So if you want me to review your book, let me know in the comments. And we'll talk. All right, bye bye.